Okay, hello. Welcome to the December delayed webinar. We had to shift it, unfortunately, because of the Visual Studio launch, but we think that was probably a good idea. This week we've got Rob, Hannes and Tiago to come and talk about a few things as well. So without any further ado, welcome. So that's me, I'm Joe Newton, and there's Rob, Hannes and Tiago. So the slides will be available as per usual on the blog at the end of the webinar, and you can just contact these people if you have more questions. So we're going to cover off the launch a little bit and the new stuff in Visual Studio Online, and then whip through some of the awesome new features of the product, and also some of the other announcements around SimShip partners and different various promotions and new things that have come out as part of the 2013 launch. So we ran two events 2 weeks ago for Visual Studio launch, and we ran one in Wellington, one in Auckland. It's pretty well attended, probably got about 130 or 40 people all up across the two events, in the Whareawaka in Wellington and in the Bluestone room in Auckland. There's our illustrious leader Nigel talking about Microsoft Cloud OS. So Visual Studio is one of the few products that got a decent launch this year. Microsoft flew hundreds of people up to the New York event, and there's a ton of new stuff that's come out, both inside Visual Studio itself. Some of it's an aggregation of features that have been getting drip fed out for a while, but other stuff is new for the release, and those are some of the things we're going to cover today. So in Visual Studio Online, some of the things that have changed recently include sort of a new, it's not a reimagining, but it's a change in look and feel. There's guidance now at the top, which you can shut down, just around looking at pricing and how to use the product. The application insights box there, which you have to click, you have to go in and request to be added to the preview because they're trying to manage the number of users. But probably the interesting thing on the dashboard that you see now is down the bottom there you can see resource usage, and that is talking about the total number of build and load testing minutes that the account has available to it, and that's one of the ways in which the subscription model works now. So when you want to go over those allowances that come baked into the account, you need to go to Windows Azure and effectively buy more time. There's also been a major change around the way that licensing your users works inside Visual Studio Online. So you get a decent rolled up view now. You can see how many people are in, how many of your free allocation of 5 basic users, how many of those you've given out. If you've signed up for monthly subscriptions, which is one of the new pricing announcements that came out, then you'll see those there and you'll be able to assign them to people as well. There's 3 levels of subscription. There's a basic, advanced, professional and advanced, and they each give you more varying degrees of functionality within the product. They're quite handy for when you don't want to buy a year's worth of access via a CAL or through MSDN, but where you might need perhaps a non-technical person to have access, or contractors, that kind of thing. You can just sign them up on a subscription, and then when they're done you can just cancel the subscription. You'll see here I've invited a bunch of different people from Microsoft into my team room, and you'll see that it's showing up as eligible MSDN subscriber, so that I pick that when I say add, and when the person accepts the invite to the project, the system verifies what kind of MSDN you're on and then gives you the corresponding access rights. Wanted to call out some cool stuff in Visual Studio Ultimate as well. Well, not Ultimate, but in the Visual Studio product. One of the things people normally do is when they first come into Visual Studio, they say, don't take me to the start page. I just want to go to a blank so that it opens up faster, or I want to take me to my last project that I had open, for convenience sake. One of the things you'll be missing out if you don't come to the start page is these new set of product videos. It's a really good way of coming to grips with new features in the product, and all you need is internet access for that to come up. It also aggregates some news, which is probably useful to keep an eye on every now and then when you open up the product. Within Visual Studio Online itself, one of the other features, it's a kind of a small change that they've made, but it simplifies, I think, from a visual perspective, but also from a doing it perspective. When you create yourself a query and you want to take that query and turn it into a tile on the dashboard screen within Visual Studio Online, you can now just come in here and click the pin, and it will show you clearly that it's actually out there on the dashboard. Previously you had to drag them around the place and put them into the team favorites for them to show. Okay, Rob is going to talk to us about release management.
Thanks, Joe. So I just wanted to briefly touch on some changes that have been happening in this area of the product late in the 2012 cycle and now kind of built into 2013. So we now have native release management capability inside Team Foundation Server. So this is due to the acquisition of a product called InRelease. This was from a partner company, InCycle Software. And InRelease enables release management using Team Foundation Server. So it was already tightly integrated, and Microsoft have bought the product now and are building it natively into the product set. So this was really a missing part of the story with Team Foundation Server for some time. So now we get the ability to configure, approve, and deploy our applications in any environment. So whether you're looking to get to continuous delivery, whether you have a very heavyweight gated approach, this tooling really helps because we can structure release pipelines. So what are the sequence of events that make up a release? And then we can reuse those pipelines across development, test, production, staging, all the different environments that you have. So you know that you're using the same process across all of your environments. And if some things need manual approvals, there's a dashboard and a workflow built in to do that. People can use email or whatever tool is convenient for them to say, yeah, I sign off, this is ready to go to the next stage of deployment. And then the automated pipeline can kick back in and deploy the bits. So you can have as complex an environment as you need, a deployment pipeline as you need, or as simple as you need, and get really good traceability of what was deployed, by who approved it, and when. So it kind of ties together, obviously, build. So you'd expect Team Foundation build to actually compile the bits in the first place. And then it can work with your existing MSIs. It can do things like create IIS websites. It can copy the files around for you. It can hook into Azure and create VMs, provision, deploy to existing VMs you've got set up there. So it's a huge capability now that we've got in the product that is well worth taking a look at. If you haven't looked at, got into release management yet, this is something that a lot of teams have either built some custom work on the end of their process, or they drop out into another piece of tooling entirely. So it's really nice that we can keep it all in the same dashboard and kind of get closer to that ideal of continuous delivery or more frequent releases, knowing that you've got a process that works, not have to get your ops people to sort of manually go through documents. And embed your process in a Windows workflow, which is kind of the native way you can build up the pipeline, and then just reuse it across all your environments. So you can download the deploy agents, the approval tools. I won't go through the licensing now, but it obviously fits into this kind of SKU-based licensing story inside TFS. But whether you're using on-prem or Azure as your environments you want to deploy to, it's going to work straight out of the box. So I encourage you to get that downloaded and have a go.
Thanks, Rob. Now I'm just going to have a quick chat about application insights. So this is the big new announcement from the Visual Studio Online product perspective, is this telemetry and monitoring service in VSO. And this is kind of a big deal. It can monitor servers, whether they are on-premise in third-party data centers or in Azure itself. It's designed to not only do your sort of traditional ping tests or synthetic transaction type tests or any of that, but it also uses IntelliTrace under the hood. It can track the performance of queries, it can track the performance of the server itself, it can look at things like memory and the event viewer and look at all those kind of logs and stuff. It rolls it up into a nice dashboard and it's programmatic in that sense. You can go and change the things you want to look at. We think this is a really important addition to the product suite. Like Rob mentioned, the release management was probably lacking previously. This kind of dashboard gives you that extra piece of the puzzle when it comes to closing the ALM loop in terms of monitoring. And yeah, like I said before, you just have to go in and request to be added to the preview at this stage. It took me a couple of days to get in, but you can go in and then you can start. You follow there's a handy little video and there's some steps that sort of explain what to do to go through and get it going. So I definitely recommend going and having a play with that and getting into it. The other nice thing about it is, even if you are an MSN subscriber at your work and you may or may not use TFS on-premise, maybe you're using some different tooling on-premise, if you're an MSN subscriber, you can still get access to Visual Studio Online and you can still get access to this service. Equally, you can get access to the load testing service in the same way. So the idea is there that you can kind of leverage it from a hybrid IT perspective. You don't have to be all into the cloud in order to make use of these services, which is pretty cool operating model. And now I'm going to flick over to Hannes to talk about some of the new announcements around Xamarin and Windows Store.
Cool, thanks for that, Joe. So what I've got to add isn't all that new in the greater scheme of things. A few weeks ago, along with the Visual Studio launch, we also announced that you'll now be able to get a discount off of the Xamarin product. So in this slide over here, I've got the actual two options that you get, but it's basically 30 to 50% off of the Xamarin license, depending on your MSDN subscription and what you're getting. The second big announcement that we've got is the one where we've just now pushed $100 million into the Windows Store. This is money that's basically being distributed in the form of gift cards that we're handing out with devices. It's a joint venture between Microsoft and Nokia, and a number of different devices will be coming out with these gift cards. It'll come with Xboxes, with phones, with touch PCs, and it's money that will be able to be spent in all of our stores. We're also going big on releasing gift cards in around 20 markets through retailers at the moment. And then the second next announcement, about 3 weeks ago or so, we put out a announcement on the Windows App Builder blog that will be merging Windows Store accounts for developers. And what that means is if you've got a Windows Phone account, you can now sign up for a free Windows Store account, Windows 8 account. If you've got a Windows 8 developer account, you can sign up for a free Windows Phone account. If you've already got both, you would have by now received an email with a token for a free renewal next year. We've also changed the prices for these accounts. You can now get both accounts for $19 if you're an individual, or you can get a company account for $99. So that's some good value there for all of our developers out there. This slide over here contains links to the three things that I've just mentioned. We've got the link to Xamarin's own page. We've got the link to the App Builder blog about the gift cards that's available, and then a link to the announcement around the unified stores. And with that, I'll head it back to my trusty colleague Tiago over here to talk a little bit about Azure.
Okay. So what I'll do is share my desktop. Just give me a second. That's just gonna take a couple of seconds to load, and once you can see my desktop. Okay, so what I wanted to show you is now in Visual Studio, both 2012, but especially in 2013, with the latest update in the Windows Azure SDK, you get a Windows Azure section here. Can you see zoomed in? Yep. And all of the services are now showing up there. And the one that I wanted to talk to you about is websites. So any websites that you have deployed to Windows Azure websites will now show under here. And one cool thing about it is that you can, for example, right-click on a website and view its settings, change the settings from here. But also, maintain the site so you can stop and start it. So if I chose that website and clicked on stop, it's going to go away and in the background use the management SDK for Windows Azure websites and stop that site for us. If I zoom out here and go back into my management portal and have a look at our websites, pretty soon that partner incentives website, for example, is going to stop running because we are stopping it from here. So just refresh the page, and it should show that the site is stopped, just to show you that it's actually happening, and we're doing everything from Visual Studio. So the idea behind this is that from Visual Studio itself, you shouldn't have to keep exiting out of it if you're deploying stuff to Windows Azure. While that loads, the other thing that I want to show you is one thing that you can do now is also either view streaming logs in output window. So that's going to connect into your website and show any of the tracing that you have implemented into your website. But you can also choose to attach to debugger. So what that does is, so I hope you can see that option there, attach to debugger. And what that does is it's going to connect to your website. You just have to have your website code loaded into your project here, and as far as the solution. But if you have that open and right-click and click on attach to debugger, that's going to do a remote debug session against your website. And what that does is allows you to implement breakpoints and look into the variables that are in the code that's running now. So I'll just go back here. And the last thing that I wanted to show you is if you want to download that the SDK for Visual Studio, go to www.windowsazure.com like that. Click on downloads, and then the first thing that you see here is .NET. That should take you to the page where you can download the SDK. So just click on Visual Studio 2013 here. That installs the SDKs, and then that will add what you were seeing here from my side of things to maintain your websites from inside Visual Studio. The first time you open it, you have to connect to it. And now, back in the day, you had to connect to it using a publish settings file that you downloaded from Azure. But now you can also connect to it using your Live ID, which is pretty cool. So you just right-click and say Connect to Windows Azure. It's going to pop up with the login page. And then from the login page, it's going to download all the information that it needs about your Azure subscription and populate that page there on the left with all the details. This is the login page is taking a little while for me to load, but I think that pretty much covers it. Here it is, but it pretty much covers it. So websites now showing up in Visual Studio. You can remote debug from here, which is a really cool feature, and you can also maintain the website, stop, start, view settings, change settings from here. Okay, so that's me. Thank you.
Okay, nice one. Thank you, Tiago. So, a few new changes. Obviously, there's tons and tons of new features, new services and everything in Visual Studio and Visual Studio Online. But we've also introduced some promotions around this to sort of incentivize, I guess, people to, move quickly and get into the cloud. So it's 50% off all the subscription plans and the minutes and everything in Visual Studio Online until further notice. We're running a Test Professional 35% off discount that runs until the end of June. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got those 3 new subscriptions available for Visual Studio Online. We've got Basic, Professional and Advanced. So they cover varying degrees of feature access within Visual Studio Online. Tonight in Auckland, we are running a Building Beautiful Websites with Visual Studio event. We've got some partner speakers presenting at that, and that will show. Yeah. So Tiago's just linked the event there, and definitely recommend getting along to that if you can. There'll be some drinks afterwards, chance to network with some of the leading lights in web design in Auckland. And then with Christmas and holidays, etc., we'll run the next one of these events towards the end of January on the 28th. Okay. We decided to shift ASP.NET out because obviously that had a major change as well as part of the Visual Studio launch, and we'll go into reasonable level of detail on that one next time. So probably the best part of the whole session will be on ASP.NET and Web Essentials, and developer tooling that supports some of that change as well. So yeah, that's a wrap for this time. Thank you to everybody that presented and attended, and we'll see you again in January. Cheers.